Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francis podcast, part of the Bet Rivers Network. We come to you on this mid-February morning, and obviously as we start spring training, and there's something to get to in baseball, which we will in a second, and we'll get to some emails. Remember, send your emails to Mike Francis podcast at gmail.com. A couple of things. First, the bombshell, just as the Players Association in this year where there is going to be labor unrest because the collective bargaining agreement expires in December, and there's a lot of talk of baseball maybe facing a first labor stoppage or first lockout or stoppage of some kind in many, many years. Tony Glock this morning resigns as the ML Players Association director. He's been there since 2013. Former player, as you know. Now, there are some allegations of misuse of funds from licensing money, which is extensive, which they have been putting in a war chest so that players can use it when they need it to keep the solidarity in the union if they decide to do something drastic. Now, this has to be stunning because what happens in spring training is the director goes from camp to camp and kind of, tries to rally the troops and talks to the teams, answers questions, blah, blah, blah. And now, as these players start their preseason games, their exhibition games, they are, I'm sure, abuzz today and on the phone with each other, especially the leaders of the union, about where the union is going now that Clark is resigning immediately under some cloud. Again, allegations, nothing proven yet. Allegations, investigation, but there is smoke there, and we'll see where it takes us. And will they be more militant, less militant in their approach? Don't know. That's hard to say. Some people felt Clark wasn't as tough as his predecessors. That was going to be hard to do. The players still made a lot of money in this era where all sports have made a lot of money especially from TV money. We've seen player salaries rise in every sport dramatically. Owners in baseball completely fed up with a system that is the haves and have-nots, which lends me to number 2 headline, which is Cohen speaking out. I'd like to do an interview with him. I've never interviewed him. I don't know him. I've never met him. I've never been in the same room with him. We will put in a request to interview him. I don't know if he'd sit for a one-on-one or not. I don't know. He doesn't do a whole lot. We'll see what he does. Couple of things he said. He told you that he said the things you want to hear as a fan. He said he's upset that it's taken this long to win, of course, because he thought, just like the other wizards of Wall Street, he thought, like Tepper in the NFL, who has done nothing, he thought you could walk in and they're so bright that they're so much brighter than these guys playing in the toy department of Major League Baseball. And then they found out it's not as easy as they think to build a winner. So he's been frustrated by their lack of success, clearly. He knows the fans have. He knows it's a long time between drinks. He understands the whole thing. And he also put, obviously, his manager and his general manager on call that he expects nothing less than the playoffs this year with this team. This team's got a lot of movable parts. It's got a lot of question marks. It has a chance to answer those question marks in a big way. The Mets could be an 83-win team. They could be a 94-win team. I mean, there's a lot of gap in there because there's a lot of performances that you're going to count on and a lot of question marks you're going to answer about pitchers, about everyday players, about guys changing positions, about youngsters. There's a lot there. He also talked about the Dodgers' success. Clearly, there's a little envy there, but he also talked about how I can spend money like they do. Well, show that you can spend it as smartly as they do. You haven't done that. They're a lot smarter than you have been That's why they have back-to-back championships and went out and signed 2 of the biggest jewels in the free agent market while they improve their team while they've won back-to-back championships. But he said the things that uh, fans want to hear: aggressive, gonna win, want to win, have to win, blah blah blah. That's what you want to hear. You want aggressiveness from your owner. That's what That's what fans want. Use your resources. Be aggressive. Prove that you want to win. That you're hungry to win, and that's what you get. That's what the Yankee fan doesn't get from their ownership right now, and it frustrates them clearly. Now, you heard Judge say that it's frustrated him a little bit, but now he's happy with the final product. Judge was going to get back to that no matter what. He might have his moments where he rocks the boat a little, but he is going to always be there to steady the ship. That's who he is. Not a troublemaker. Um, is he frustrated? I'm sure he is. The clock's ticking on him, and he hasn't been able to take his place, because the one thing, as he takes his place, and let's be honest, he takes his place on the line from Ruth to Gerritt to DiMaggio to Mantle to him. A-Rod is a player of that level, but obviously there are extenuating circumstances. He didn't start here. He's not homegrown, and all the issues and suspensions and trouble that went with A-Rod will always keep him a step below the others. But if you look, the one thing you get from Ruth, and especially from Gerritt and DiMaggio and Mantle, is an insane number of World Series. And you're not getting that from this player who will be regarded as an immortal player when he retires. He's that good. His lifetime numbers might not be as big as some because he got a slower start, has had some injuries, but what he has done in recent years, what he has done with his home run numbers and all of his all-around excellence, makes him a very, very special player. Now, as far as the captaincy with the Mets, to me, that is much ado about nothing. Who cares? That is the most overrated thing in the world, okay? It doesn't matter who the captain is. The Yankees didn't have a captain from Lou Gehrig to Thurman Munson. It was something that was reinstituted by George Steinbrenner. Think about it. When they were at their all-time best in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and the early 60s, that is when the Yankees were at their all-time best. Go look. They went to the World Series 80% of the time. They had no captain. They had no captain. DiMaggio wasn't the captain of the Yankees, but he was. Mantle wasn't the captain of the Yankees, but he was. He just wasn't in name. Was he the guy? Yeah. Was DiMaggio the guy? Yeah. Was Jeter the guy? Yeah. You don't need a C to be the guy. You just be the guy. And that's basically what Cohen was saying. The whole thing's overrated. I mean, you don't need a captain on your team to get leadership. Leadership comes from performance and personality. That's where it comes from. The players will line up behind the great player because they know that their performance should not cost him. They can't equal his performance, just like they can't equal Judge's performance, but they don't want to be the reason he doesn't win. And that was the same with DiMaggio, who was very unfriendly with his teammates, or Mantle, who was incredibly friendly with his teammates and beloved by his teammates. I mean, that's the thing you heard most about Mantle, was how great a teammate he was, because he was a guy with all his talents and all his success and popularity. He was very humble. He always was. As Ted Williams said in one of those documentaries, he said, Mantle, in my mind, was the most physically talented player I ever saw and the most humble player I ever saw. He said of the great players, he was clearly the most humble. And that was his way. He had a lot of humility. He was self-deprecating. That was his way, and that's why he was so popular. Um, so there's a lot going on in New York baseball with the Cohen stuff. There's a lot going on now with the Major League Players Association stuff, which is a big deal, especially in this year of possible Armageddon, likely Armageddon. Sign up for the Mike Francis newsletter for your chance to enter the February newsletter contest and win a personalized message from me or a Francis prize pack. If you haven't signed up, do it today. It's free. Go to the MikeFrancisPodcast.com and sign up, and you get the newsletter weekly, and it's free. Now, Robert Duvall, if you're a person who likes movies, you have been impacted through the years by Robert Duvall, one of the great actors, not just character actors, because he was equally good when he took a bigger role. Mentioned in a part of 6 of the movies that were considered to be top 100. He was in 6 of them. That's a lot. I mean, you remember him as Tom Hayden in The Godfather. In 1 and 2, thankfully, he wasn't in 3. I didn't know until I read something about him last night that he was negotiating to be in 3, but he said, "I'll take half of what Pacino gets, but I won't take a third or a fourth of what Pacino gets." They offered him a fourth of what Pacino got, and he wouldn't do it. And luckily, he didn't, because as he said, the movie wasn't any good. He was being kind. The movie was junk. The first movie is the best movie of all time. The second movie is not as good, but it's a classic. The third movie is complete garbage. So many different movies, whether you like Tender Mercies, which won him an Academy Award. Later on in life, The Judge with Robert Downey Jr., which is a wonderful depiction of somebody getting old. One of my favorites, The Great Santini. You can go on to his classic characters in all different genres. Western, and I heard yesterday that his all-time favorite role was in Lonesome Dove. War movies, as you know. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. I mean, we can go on and list movies from here to Kingdom Come. He had a million of them. A million of them. 95 years old. Great life, great actor. One of the greats. Be severely missed. And it was still working not that long ago. You know, he made a movie. I'm a big Reacher fan, but I like the Reacher series. Tom Cruise made 2 Reacher movies, and Tom Cruise is not bad in pretty much anything he does. But Tom Cruise does not fit the Reacher role because Reacher is a wrecking crew, and you need a big man for that, and Tom Cruise is not a big man. So he played this role, but he made 2 Reacher movies. And in the one about him trying to clear a sniper from being set up, Duvall is in that movie and has a really good part. Did a really nice job, and that wasn't that long ago. That was fairly recently. I don't know what year that movie was, but I'd say it was probably 4 or 5 years ago at the most. So he was probably close to 90 when he made that part, when he did that role, and did a good job. That's the last thing I saw him in. All right, let's get to some emails. Remember, send your questions, comments, whatever to MikeFrancisPodcast@gmail.com. Doug starts us off. Who was more responsible for the success of the Giants, Parcells or George Young? They both were equally responsible. There was a division of power. George Young ran the franchise. Bill ran the team. George Young did not believe in shackling his head coach with players they didn't want. So he gave the coach a lot of leeway in the draft room and overall on the roster because he did not believe in imposing players on a coach. He gave the coach room to work. Now, did they have times when Bill wanted a player that George didn't want? Yeah. Otis Anderson's one that Bill got. He went around. He went to Tim Marin. He got Otis Anderson. George didn't want Otis Anderson. turned out to be a good one. I'm sure the ones that George vetoed that were good moves. I'm not trying to weigh one versus the other. I'm just giving you one that was famous. Um, what they agreed upon was this. They believed that bigger in football was better. They believed in power football one. They believed in overpowering the opponent. And they believed that if you could have two players, take the bigger one if the talent was equal. George believed that. Bill believed that. They were on the same page a lot more. As people, they couldn't be more different. And I obviously know both of them extremely well. I know Bill incredibly well. I know George not as well, but I mean, I spent a lot of time with George. So George was a good guy. He came off as being this cranky, cantankerous kind of school teacher kind of guy, but he was a good guy. He was, and they both deserve an equal amount of success for what they built. Will, can the Mets survive with this pitching? The Mets are going into this season. I understand optimism. The owner yesterday spoke of optimism. I think they had to redo this team, and they did. They redid it in a big way. There are a lot of different players on this team this year. Go look. Take a column A and take the guys who are gone. Take column B, the guys who have arrived, and see how many different players you have. They had a huge turnover in this personnel of this team. I think that was necessary. Not just because some of them weren't getting along. That wasn't the reason. It was because the team wasn't good. It was poor defensively. It lacked in certain areas. It did not create runs when it needed to. Plus, it looks like just from the beginning, you're going to see a very different Soto this year than you saw last year. Much more of a take charge leader type with the younger players. Now, they have talent on this roster, both in the pitching department and in the player department. Are things going to fall into place? I mean, who's going to play right field? Are they going to get productivity out of right field, or they got to go get a right fielder? You know, the early returns are that the phenom's not going to start the season in right field. Okay, we don't even know if he's a phenom yet. Everyone talks like he is, but again, he's got to prove it. Now, the thought was he'd get a chance to win right field. Now you're starting to hear already that it's a long shot that he would win right field. I think they need a veteran bat. I really do. I like a lot of the moves they made. I like the configuration of the team, but I do think they're missing one big RBI bat. The pitching, they have enough to get the job done if everything falls into place. But again, you know, in a season, it's very hard, especially with the bullpen, to know what's going to fall into place and what's not. I mean, the best laid plans. Look at what they did last year. They were lauded for what they brought in to their bullpen at the trade deadline last year, and it completely imploded. Nobody could have thought that. They got A pluses all the way down the line. Joey, does Wright coming to the Jets make you feel better about the development of a quarterback? Yeah, it does. But again, this is not the year, and typical Jets, this is not the year where you want to be looking for a number one quarterback. The draft is not deep. Free agency is not deep. The trade market is not good. You want Murray at quarterback? I mean, I'd like Willis. I don't think he's coming near the Jets. I think he's going to Miami. He's very close to the new head coach there. He ran the scout team, and he spent every day with the defensive coordinator, and they're very good friends. They're very close. I think he goes to Miami, and Miami's already cleared the way for him. Um, but I think Frank will be a grown-up, be someone who can run the team offensively and can coach the quarterback. Yes, I do. Tony, have you watched the Olympics at all? Anything stand out? I watched I'll tell you something. I going into the men's figure my wife likes to watch the figure skating. So I watched the figure skating with her. Okay, she doesn't watch, you know, she watches football. She watches baseball. She doesn't watch basketball at all. She doesn't really watch anything else, but she likes the figure skating. So we sat down to watch the men's the other night, and she likes the pairs too. We watched some of that last night. But I did not know that this kid who they call the quad god, uh, this 21-year-old phenom was the heaviest favorite to win a gold medal. It was like a lock. They built their programming around him. And because he's a good-looking kid, he's a big star on the skating scene already. Uh, he's considered to be iconic in some ways, obviously with the quads that he does, the jumps that he does. And he went out there, and he didn't go to the Olympics at 17, and he wanted to. And, the first thing he said when he lost, when he fell down, and that night the ice was slippery because everyone fell down. Um, he said, "I should have been on the Olympic team 4 years ago." Well, that's an excuse. You won the world championship like the last 2 years. Uh, you were considered to be a lock to win a gold medal. You didn't even need a very demanding program. You had a lead. You didn't even need a very demanding program to win the gold medal. He decided to do a very demanding program. And I thought that night when they reviewed it with Tirico, who's everywhere these days, one of the old skaters, I don't remember what his name is. Um, he had kind of a weird hairdo and stuff. He made a great point though. He said he missed a jump early, so he pulled out of a jump, like he was going to do a big quad, a big difficult jump, and he knew he didn't have it. He was off balance or he was off step, and he pulled out of it. So now, instead of just continuing his program and doing what's programmed into his head, he decides to fit the difficult jump back into the program, and he's thinking about where he's going to fit the jumps that he missed back into the program and threw his whole program off and went down again a second time. So that made plenty of sense to me. He should have been coached that if you miss something, just go on. Don't improvise. Stick to the program. Now, that to me is just coaching. He obviously has since said, and he was crestfallen when he lost. He even said, "I don't even have words," afterwards because he was considered a lock to win the gold medal. Um, he said afterwards that the Olympics was different, and he didn't prepare himself for the Olympics to be different. He was so overconfident that he thought it would be like the Worlds and the other things he skated in, and it would be real easy, and he said when he got out there, it was completely different. And he said, "I didn't realize the Olympics was gonna be complete it took me by real surprise," which he was honest enough to admit. I was overwhelmed by the situation. He's 21 years old. I'm sure it's a devastating blow. He finished 8th. Um, everyone expected him to win. So that became an interesting story because I didn't even know who he was before I watched the program that night. Uh, I haven't watched a lot of the other stuff. I haven't watched any of the hockey yet. I know we're coming up to the big hockey confrontations. Um, I watched the pads with my wife last night, and in between they had the bobsled on, and they had a great feature on this 41-year-old bobsledder. Now, I didn't realize we had done so well in bobsled in recent years because I always thought we never won any medals in bobsled. I always thought it was the Germans and the Swiss and all the Norwegians and all the snow countries that, you know, won the bobsled. Um, but we had done pretty well in the bobsled, especially with the women. And this woman was highly decorated. She's 41 and she had 2 deaf kids, but she had never won gold. And she won gold last night, which was a nice story, a nice human interest story, which I actually saw, which I knew nothing about. I don't even know her name now, to be honest with you. I should, but I don't. But she had her children out there, and she's telling them, "Mommy won in sign language." It was really touching. It really was because she has 2. Uh, I don't know why that she has 2, but whatever was the reason why she. Uh, but how it changed her life, how it gave her discipline, and all the different things it did to her life, and uh, made her a better person, and all these different things. So it was a very touching story. And then she went out and won the gold medal. That's about it. That's all I've seen. So I've seen very little of the. Every time I turn it on, curling's on, and I don't even have a clue what the rules are in curling. So all I know is I see them with the brush and the whole thing. And I'm like, every time I turn it on, curling's on, and I'm like, is it always curling? Um, Leslie, why are the Yankees so attached to Boone and Cashman? The Yankees like continuity. Uh, you have to understand, this is where there's a fork in the road. The fans want championships, but they incredibly support the product. That they will fill the ballpark as long as you give them stars, and they have one of the 2 biggest stars in baseball. They have other stars on the team. You keep winning at a level where you make the playoffs every year. You hit a bunch of home runs, you bully bad teams. There's a lot of wins at Yankee Stadium, and the tradition from father to son to family so they fill the ballpark. But they're unhappy because they think the Yankees are complacent, and the Yankees are complacent because the Yankees hierarchy, their ownership view of success is as much economic as it is in the standings. And as long as they fill the ballpark, fill the luxury boxes, have people buying Yankee hats and sweatshirts and jackets and coats and record number, okay? Watch the games. The sponsors buy the signage around the ballpark. As long as all those things happen and they make the postseason, that's a success. So if you look at it over the last 15 years, they've had in their minds, in Hal's mind, in Cashman's mind, in Boone's mind, they've had a top record. They win 90 games almost every year. They go to the playoffs 9 times out of 10. But you're in a long drought. They haven't won a World Series in 16 years. They went 18 years between 76 and 78 and 96. Went to the World Series in 81. Blew the World Series in 81 to the Dodgers, but the Dodgers had blown series to them back in the 70s, so they were even. Um, the bottom line is that's why 96 was so important. But 96 was not only a great come from behind victory, it launched a dynasty. 2009 didn't launch anything, it just saved jobs. Because if they don't win from 2000, remember, they went in '01 and lost in game 7. I had to sit through game 6 and 7 in Arizona, and I still haven't, forgotten it. 6 was a disaster. Andy got bombed. 7, we know what happened. 2003, go to the World Series and lose to a team that was inferior, that had one pitcher get hot. And they were so smug about winning. Everybody was. We were, the media was, everybody was. No one thought the Marlins were going to beat them. 04, the collapse, which changed the Yankee Red Sox dynamic forever. And other than '09, it's been one postseason disappointment after another. But they are, from ownership standpoint, they are doing what they expect. They are making the playoffs. Bing. They are filling the ballpark. Bing. The revenues are full. The cash register is full, despite what they tell you. Bing. Okay. Luxury boxes, signage. It's all there. As long as that's there, Brian and Aaron are going nowhere. It'd be nice to win one of these years. Yeah, absolutely would. Absolutely would. But they won't get fired because they don't win a World Series. They will get fired when the team crashes and burns and doesn't make the playoffs. When the thing collapses. It's not going to collapse. They have too much talent to collapse. Look at their pitching staff. Pitching staff could be special this year, especially if Cole comes back. Steve Cohen said they will never be a captain. I already addressed that. What are the expectations for Cole as he returns this season? I think you have to be careful with Cole and understand what you want from him. Let him come along at his own pace. Understand you want first him to go out and show you he's healthy. Then you want him to show you he can be consistent. And then by September, even late September, you want to see him hit a peak where he can be dynamic and lead you in the postseason. Where if they have the 1-2 punch they dream of, that they can go into the playoffs and win with that kind of pitching. But you know what? Even if their pitching shows up, and the Dodgers have proved this to you, even if the pitching shows up, you're going to have to make the play. You're going to have to get the hit. So the Dodgers get the hit, get the homers, make the defensive stand. Both a backhand stop and the catcher getting his toe in the corner of the plate. And then obviously the catch in the outfield on a ball that didn't look like it was going to get caught. Think of all the things that had to happen for the Dodgers to win that championship. And then you put the Yamamoto brilliance on top of that. But on its own, the Yamamoto brilliance wasn't enough. So even if you get it from the guys you expect, even if you get brilliance from Cole, you're still going to need that clutch hit, that big defensive play, that player that you didn't count on to make that play. Because often it is that guy that makes the play in the World Series. Bucky Dent, the Al Weiss, okay, the Gene Tennis, you go down the line. The Louis Soho, the Rojas, okay, the Bernie Carbo. There's a million of them. A million of them. Okay? The Layrits, there's a million of them. It's not always the Judge or the DiMaggio or the Ruth or the Mantle. So many times it's the Billy Martin. It's the Bobby Richardson, the Louis Arroyo. Go down the line. There's a million of them. You need to be a team. It takes that whole roster to win the championship. It comes up every year. But with him, you're looking for first health, second consistency, and then hopefully by the fall, some brilliance. If you can get ABC, you're going to be in good shape in the postseason. We'll see you later.